Today's episode of Armchair Ninja Podcast is brought to you by Atomic Climbing Holds. You've seen Atomic's work in some of the most iconic obstacles on American Ninja Warrior, including Cannonball Alley, Area 51's UFOs, and Stage 3's infamous hang climb.
You're listening to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Here is your host, Rich.
Hello, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. My name is Rich, and this is Thursday, December 24th, 2015. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Bijan. How are you making out this week?
What's up, Rich? How's that going, everybody? Man, this is going to be a fun week. I hope you're ready.
Yeah, really excited. Team Ninja Warrior is getting more and more amped up. Esquire is actually starting to put some stuff out there. And we've got our preview to look forward to. Lots of good stuff today. And, of course, the National Ninja League, as always.
Yeah, we got a course. We actually know some of the obstacles that are going to be happening. We're going to save that towards the end of the podcast. So for the listeners that don't want to be spoiled about the course, you can just skip that part. But we'll definitely give you a heads up when it's going to be happening. We'll save it towards the end. But it's going to be some fun breakdowns.
Yeah, just like Star Wars, we'll be avoiding the spoilers for you. So
Exactly.
Yeah, so let's jump right into it. We've got Team Ninja Warrior. So we're going to talk about, we're going to do our continuing coverage of the teams themselves. So we've got 4 more teams this week, some big names and some good teams. Let's see who we've got. Team number 1, we've got the Storm team. That is Joe Moravsky, Rob Moravsky, and Mary Beth Wang. What's your initial take on this team?
It's a pretty stacked team. We have, in my opinion, Rob Moravsky's kind of still a question mark. I don't know how you feel about him. I've never seen him tackle an obstacle in terms of speed and precision at the same time. I think we've all seen how talented Joe Moravsky is. I mean, the guy is just phenomenal. And even though he attacks a course in more of a methodical manner, he's actually fairly quick on the obstacles in terms of, I don't know, just handling obstacles with intense precision. You never see him stopped up from an obstacle. So he might be the speed demon from the course side, but Rob Moravsky, in my opinion, is a huge question mark.
Yeah, I think you nailed it. So Joe is, to me, the ideal competitor for this kind of competition. He's so consistent. He's got good speed. He's just an all-around solid choice to do really well in this kind of competition. But his cousin, right? His cousin Rob?
Yeah, it's his cousin.
Yeah, he is... he's a specimen. I'll give him that, man. That guy is stacked. But as far as his actual ability to run the course, we've seen, he did pretty well last season, or in season 6, I should say. But even then, he needed a wild card to get to Vegas. He ended up going out in the qualifier this season. So he's definitely got talents. I just wondering if we'll get to see how well he can do this year.
Basically, what I was going to say is Rob, in my opinion, reminds me a lot of Evan Dollard, and the fact that he's got a lot of upper body strength. He's physically very impressive. I'm pretty sure he's got a lot of female fans. In terms of a course where it matters about speed and a lot of balance precision, different things like that, I don't know how well suited he will be for the course, but we're definitely going to find out a whole lot more about him. I could be completely wrong, but he is going to be the key in terms of how well this particular team performs. Mary Beth, she's actually fairly good. She's kind of more lesser known, but from her run in 2005 Orlando qualifiers, you can definitely see that she has some talents.
Yeah, and we actually mentioned her last week. She actually won last week's National Ninja League comp at Ninja Course. I mean, she's really good. She's a strong choice. I think her and Joe are really solid anchors, and it really boils down to how Rob's going to fare at this kind of a course. Okay, moving on to the next team. We had a team called Think Tank, and that's Noah Kaufman, Matthew Wilder, and I'm going to say this wrong probably, Asha Gretschka. Okay, so Noah is a friend of the podcast. We've had him on before, and a really solid guy, solid competitor. Had a bit of a bad season personally. He went out in the qualifier this past season, but he's very, very consistent. He was stage 2 in his rookie year, season 5, and in season 6. He does tend to go slowly, though, as he himself noted that he has never had to go fast previously. He was always very methodical in his approach. So this doesn't really play to his strengths. And his teammates, we've got Matthew Wilder, who's a friend of the Wolfpacks. He did pretty well in season 6. They called him Dr. Climb. He made it to stage 1. Had a really interesting run, if you can remember it.
Yeah, on his run in the Denver finals, I mean, he showed so much heart. This guy is not only talented, but he's kind of one of those athletes that you really want to root for, just because the way he tackles the course, it shows. I don't know. From what I was gathering, you can tell that it was perhaps one of his first times trying the course. And even with his inexperience, he did really, really well. And it wasn't due to precision or anything like that. It was just due to complete heart and grit and just toughing through these obstacles. You need to see the pain in his eyes the whole time. But he held in there, and he was doing incredible feats. He actually, on the parallel bars where they kind of go different, like they go up and down while you're on 2 rings, he actually lost grip on one of the rings and swung from one ring all the way to the end of the obstacle, similar to what Kevin Bull did on the Cannonball Alley.
Yeah, I actually watched the video just before we recorded too. It was very cool. He got on the one ring and he slid it along into the notch and then managed to make a dismount from quite a distance back. So very impressive run. His wife was very vocal on the sidelines as well. Pretty memorable performance from her as well. I don't see that he was on this season though. So I don't know if he didn't make it past the preliminaries or if he wasn't accepted onto the show or if he hadn't applied, but we'll get a chance to see him again.
Yeah, it could be various factors. One thing, though, is with his facial expressions and just how he tackled the course, I think he's going to be really fun to watch. I don't know what he'll do, but he's going to be entertaining. It's going to be definitely something to see.
And Asha, we get to see her submission video. Very technical girl. Does AI programming. She's a climber. Looks like a very strong climber from the video that she had. So it'd be interesting to see how she does as well.
Yeah, from what she's shown, she's going to have really good upper body strength and very good grip strength, which I think will suit her well compared to a lot of the other female athletes. It's always good to have one particular talent that really makes you above the pack, because it's not like she's not talented in all the other facets. She definitely seems like she's in complete shape. Who knows how she'll do on obstacles that we've never seen her tackle before, but for anything rock climbing, she's going to kill it.
So definitely going to be rooting for Noah's team, just because Noah's such a great guy. We'll see how they make out.
Yeah, and somebody going for his master's right now and future PhD. Big shout out to that team. I love people that, have the intelligence on the brain.
Yeah, that's actually no wonder called think tank now that you look at it, between the 2 doctors and the AI programmer.
Yeah, some talent up there in the brain, right?
Yeah. The next team we had was called Powerhouse. At least that's what I've got them listed as here. I also saw them listed as... Do you see them listed as Ronin, or is that just me?
Ronin. Well, let's find their official name right here. Give me 1 second, because I actually have the website preview. Why don't you break down the team while I look it up?
Okay, so we've got Flip Rodriguez, Jared J.J. Woods and Tiana Weberly. This was Bijan's original pick for the show. Flip Rodriguez, absolutely phenomenal competitor. He's been on Ninja Warrior since season 3. He's consistently good and fast. He did have an early out last year, but he redeemed himself again this year. Had removed his mask that is so iconic this year to show basically that he was taking this more seriously. Flip's got to be one of the favorites to do well in this because he's so quick and so good at this.
Yeah. So first of all, full disclosure, I wasn't able to tell you this, but I have a new pick for the winner of the show, and it is not Team Ronin. I really feel bad. I think they're going to do phenomenally well. But my top pick for the show, I will reveal after the breakdown. So there's a little tease nugget for you. Now, Team Ronin, there's a reason why they were initially my top pick to win the show. They are phenomenally well suited for the show. There's a lot of talent in terms of speed, upper body strength, just obstacle awareness, I guess is the best way to describe them. I think they're going to be doing very well in a lot of the balance and speed obstacles.
All right, yeah. So after Flip, we actually had Jared J.J. Woods, who was on season 4, made it to stage 1. He skipped season 5, but in season 6 and 7 hit stage 2. So he's really consistent. When he competes, he goes to Vegas. Like, he's very, very good. So definitely need to can't discount JJ Woods at all. And their last team member is Tiana Weberly, who was a pole vaulter. And I found this actually one of her runs at Apex NorCal from early 2015, and I'm going to put a link to that for her, and actually a couple of the lesser known competitors. I'll put some links in there for you to check them out. But Tiana was very solid at this competition earlier this year, so I definitely think that this team is really strong and one to watch.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't see much in terms of problems in the entire team. I mean, all 3 of them are very, very strong. I think Tiana's really going to surprise a lot of people. She shows so much potential in the videos that you were talking about. Man, she's on a whole nother level compared to a lot of these women. She's very, very talented. And I think she's going to be one of those competitors that really shine on this show. Flip, I think, is going to do phenomenally well. This show completely suits his strengths. JJ Woods, if anything, will be the question mark, but I also think JJ Woods is going to do quite well, just due to his overall attack of the course. He's a little not careless, but reckless, I guess you could say. He can sometimes make mistakes, but overall, if he positions himself on the right portion of the course, I think he's going to do just fine on his suit, and I think the other 2 are really going to boost up the time on their team.
Great. And the 4th team we were going to talk about is called Iron Grip. That is Sam San, Daniel Gill, and Lachelle Helper. So Sam San's become pretty synonymous with the sport. He's an older competitor in his late 40s. Went out in qualifying in season 4. In season 5, he actually injured himself, but got a Vegas wild card. Was actually kind of what really made him stand out because he pushed through. Was a really phenomenal run for him in season 5. But it's kind of a tragedy because from season 5 to 7, he keeps making it to Vegas, but he has an awful time with the second obstacle every time in stage 1. There's just a long jump that he seems to struggle with, and again this season he wasn't able to make that leap. So everybody's kind of rooting for Sam. I'm hoping to see him back next season. I'd love to see him be able to get past that point. I
definitely want to see him do well. Obviously, It's hard for me to say, but I don't think this team's going to do well. And unfortunately, I think it is due to Sam San. He tends to, I guess, falter on smaller or not small obstacles, but more transition-like obstacles. And I think Team Ninja Warrior is going to be heavily occupied with transition obstacles like the log grip and the barrel roll, things like that. I think you're going to see him falter somewhat on these obstacles. So I really hope I'm wrong, and I certainly can be. But I think his two teammates will be able to pick up the slack, if anything.
Yeah, Sam's a bit of a question mark for me, too. So, very strong competitor, can definitely do extremely well at times. Did really well this season in the qualifying and finals. So, we'll see. I think he has a lot of potential there to do well. I don't think we can discount him, but he's definitely, I think, not going to hold up to as well as his, I don't know what you call him. I want to say disciple. He's like Daniel Gill, the rookie from Sam's gym, was phenomenal this season. I think he's going to just do crazy well in this course. But things can happen. Who knows? His inexperience may show in the end. So we'll find out. And unfortunately, their teammate Lachelle Helper couldn't find anything on her. We're gonna have to assume that she's someone from the gym that they know is strong competitor, which should probably be good enough considering the reputation for their gym. I'm sure they have somebody good with them. I will advise people that if you start Googling her name, you get some not so safe for work results.
Don't Google her name. Just don't.
You might want to just stay away from that.
And to make it clear, it's not her that we're talking about.
Exactly. Oh yes, that's probably worth mentioning too. Yeah, it's not that it's her. She just seems to share some common terms with some not so nice videos. So.
Yeah, moving on from that. One thing I want to make clear is Sam San's gym is one of the most phenomenal ninja gyms out there. So it has to be assumed that she's one of his disciples, just like Daniel Gill. And if she's anything like Daniel Gill, she's going to be phenomenal on this show. And I think Daniel Gill is really going to shine on this show. I mean, he's got an experience and everything, but I don't know how much longer we can even say that because he's been on, 2 seasons of the show now, and it sounds like he trains all the time. So I think he's going to do quite well. Unfortunately, Sam San, as I said, I really hope I'm wrong, but if anybody's going to make that team falter, it's going to be Sam San.
Yeah, almost ironically, I think. Because Sam is so iconic. This was Daniel's first season. We saw him 3 times because we got to see him in the qualifier finals. But yeah, it's still Daniel's first season. So
wow, that's crazy. I think it's just because we've been talking about him so much. Like, I think we've been
fanboying over him a little bit too much this season, maybe.
Yeah, just a little. But hey, it speaks to how impressive he really was, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like Kevin Bull's run last year, whereas just you can't wipe it from your head. Like he just stood out so much.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right, so that is our coverage of Team Ninja Warrior. So now a word from our sponsor. How often do you sit around thinking, man, I really wish I could climb my walls right now? If the answer is more than once, you have the heart of a ninja, or possibly a monkey. Either way, Atomic Climbing Holds has you covered. They've got grips, holds, bombs, and other goodies that you can swing from, climb on, jump to, jump from, and even lâcher to. I think. I'm not really sure what that means. Anyway, if you want to climb the walls safely, go to Atomic Climbing Holds to find out how. Just go to ninjapodcast.com, click on the banner for Atomic Climbing Hold. You can use our discount code of podcast and save 10% off your purchase. Okay, welcome back for our continued coverage of everything ninja related, and we're going to transition now into the National Ninja League. So, kind of a funny opening. I loved the opening to this week's update from Chris Wilczewski, because he decided for some reason, which wasn't really made clear, to sing the opening himself. Did you laugh at that as hard as I did?
Oh yeah, it was quite fun, and the whole lyrics was about how great Jeff Britton was and everything. It was quite funny.
Yeah, it was a pretty good parody of his own theme tune here. So this was the competition at Pinnacle Parkour. So let's take a look at the results. For the women, in third place, we had Jessica Britton, who did really well. There is an extended video basically showing in more detail her run, which was really interesting to watch. She struggled at a few points, but did some really good recovery. But she did end up timing out at the top of the warped wall. Actually, before we go through the runs, what did you think of the overall course, Bijan?
Yeah, I was about to say, this course is, in my opinion, the most impressive course we've seen from any of the Ninja Warrior competitions. And that's saying a lot because I really liked a lot of these courses. But man, this course was amazing. And it's mostly amazing due to how creative the obstacles were. Any of the obstacles, they kind of have like a twist to modern day Ninja Warrior obstacle races. None of them are just straight up parodies from the show or from anything we've seen. We see, for instance, a devil steps, right? But instead of it going upwards or anything, they actually have it very low to the ground, having it horizontal where you have to keep your body upwards and you have to use your core to keep your legs up while climbing across. And it looked incredibly difficult. They have very good upper body rock climbing segments where rather than just using your hands, you have to use your feet in these bigger, I guess, how would you describe it? Imagine, when you see rock climbing, I guess, places, right? You have these smaller pegs where you put your feet at. These are bigger, but it's at a larger slant where you have to really hang your body outwards to go across this, and you have to traverse around giant, I guess, corners. So yeah, it looked very difficult. There were great balance obstacles. There were some incredible grip strength obstacles. For instance, you have to go across these small, almost like book-like pegs that are on chains. And my favorite part of the course is Cannonball Alley, but rather than just cannonballs, they have holes in them where you have to put pegs in them to go across it. And it looked absolutely the toughest obstacle I've ever seen. I don't know how anybody could do it. And we'll describe how well people did on that particular obstacle, but that obstacle alone, I am like, how can anybody do that thing? It looked brutal and so cool.
Yeah, I kind of wish that it had been broken down into maybe smaller stages, because it was so impossible that most of the obstacles kind of went to waste because no one could get through it. It was Jamie Ron set up an amazingly tough course by the looks of it.
Yeah, and they're timed. So that's why I couldn't really see it, because a lot of people timed out.
So moving on. So Jess Britton did really well. She got third place. And then in second place, we have Alyssa Beard, who got just past the balance obstacle. She was, did a really solid run as well. Some really long balance obstacles. We got to see her complete those. She did really well overall. And then in first place, a familiar name, Jessie Lebrecq. She's the first female to win 2 comps. They get to see a nice save from her on the rope swing. And she was the only woman to attempt what they called a skywalk, which I believe was the one, as you described, as like the devil steps, but very low to the ground.
Yeah, and she looked very impressive in general, keeping good poise under pressure, and she was able to tackle a lot of the more difficult obstacles with a certain level of comfort, I guess you could say.
Yep, so very solid run from Jessie. I think if she keeps it up, we'll be seeing more from her on the show and or Team Ninja Warrior next year.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so moving on to the men. In third place, we have John Stevens. And Unfortunately, nobody captured footage of John's run. It's noted that he did really well, and unfortunately, we'll have to go with just that for now, and we'll just keep an eye out and see if John's maybe in any other competitions, and we'll try to give him a better shout out that time. In second place, we have Yancey Cusada, and he went out on a really interesting obstacle, as we noted that there's so many cool and different obstacles. This one's like a hamster wheel, I think they called it, where it's kind of like the ones where they've had where they have to grab a bar and spin this thing in a full rotation dangling from it. But this one was, I don't know what you call it, like a series of pegs, almost like a water wheel, I guess.
The best explanation is it actually looks like a hamster wheel, but rather than being inside of it, you're outside of it.
That makes sense. Yeah, that's much easier. So he did really well. That's really far into the course. And first place, once you see his name on the roster, it's not that surprising. Jeff Britton. So he's the first competitor to get back-to-back first places at National Ninja League competitions. And he went really far. When you look at the size of this course and the complexity of it, he got really far into it, past all these strange and interesting obstacles, including balance ones, which he fully admits is not his strong suit. I think one of my favorite ones we got to see him do was, you did describe it a bit, it's almost like the floating boards, but they're smaller, just like almost like grabbing books, like just dangling off of a shelf to move along. It's just crazy that he was able to do that so far into it after burning himself out on other obstacles.
Yeah, and can you just imagine how much grip strength you need to grab something like that? Because it's not like the top of these book like things were available for you to grab. You can only grab the sides of them, so you really have no bottom curve to grip your fingers around. You have to squeeze for your life on this, not just squeeze for your life on one of them. You have to continue to go across of it. It is insane how much grip strength this guy has. Obviously, everybody knows how really good he is at grip strength, but this particular obstacle really accentuated how incredible he is when it comes to these obstacles.
Yeah, you almost feel like Jamie may have just wanted to see what he could do and decided to design obstacles that only Jeff could do just to see him do them.
Yeah, in many ways. Oh, well, I really, who knows if there are other people that can do it, but man, they only showed one that was able to do it, and that was Jeff. And, woo, this is an obstacle I would love to see on American Ninja Warrior because it looks so incredibly difficult, but at the same time, I don't know how many people are going to be able to do it, so.
Yeah, you'd have to put it as one of the obstacles in stage 3, and then just you'd lose half the field in the process.
Yeah, but at the same time, the Cannonball Alley with the pegs after this particular obstacle is also another incredible obstacle. So, once again, I really enjoyed this course and the creativity implemented in these obstacles, and I really hope some of the producers from American Ninja Warrior were watching this because they can really take some notes when it comes to these.
Yeah, I don't know about that Cannonball Alley one. To me, that looks impossible. But then I think that a lot of times about these things until they actually do them. But yeah, it's almost like bowling balls hanging down, and if you had to put pegs into the holes in a bowling ball to move your way across, it's just the craziest looking obstacle.
Yeah, I have no idea how anybody can do it, but for how many years now watching Sasuke and Ninja Warrior, we've been saying it about all these obstacles, and yet we're still surprised people are able to do it. So, who knows? Yeah. What was the one, the hourglass drop this year was like, oh, they made an impossible obstacle. Very good job. And then people figured it out. Yeah, for me, it was the invisible ladder. While watching it, I'm like, who the heck is going to be able to do that?
Yeah, that would be another good example. Okay, so that is our National Ninja League coverage. Moving on to our Fan of the Week. Strangely enough, Fan of the Week this week is going to go out to James McGrath, of all people, for reaching out to us a couple of times now, particularly on Facebook, to give us heads up about information, including our upcoming coverage of Team Ninja Warrior, the course preview. So it's kind of a shock when that happens, right? When you go and check to see who's been reaching out to us, check to see if anybody's emailed, and to see James McGrath as the one that's contacting you is pretty cool.
Yeah, he sounds like a big fan, and I've been a fan of his forever, so it's really cool to hear from him, and I really hope we get to hear him on the show coming closer to Team Ninja Warrior, because I'm sure he'd have a lot of really great insight. And actually, talking about James McGrath, he is part of the team that I am officially going to choose as my pick for winning the show. Now, I want to say I chose this pick before he actually reached out to us, so I don't want to sound like I'm fanboying about him. But his team, we'll get into when we preview it more, but his team is going to be my top pick.
Yeah, another solid team for sure. But like you said, we'll get to them in the coming weeks for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, moving on to our video of the week this week, it didn't seem right to go digging around when the video of the week, the one that got us most excited almost instantly, was the preview of the Team Ninja Warrior course and some of the behind the scenes that Esquire posted. So, that's going to be the next segment we discuss. So, if you're trying to avoid any and all spoilers, I don't think we're going to give away too much right now, so you're probably safe. We definitely don't know any results. We're just going by what they showed in the preview about the course itself. And you know what? I actually did my best to avoid looking at who they had running the course against each other and how they were doing, because I don't even want to spoil that much for myself. So we're not going to talk about who we saw where and try to nitpick that kind of thing. We're just going to talk about what obstacles we saw.
Yeah, this is only going to be about the obstacles. We're not going to be speaking much about any of the competitors we saw on the obstacles. It's only going to be a breakdown of the course itself.
Okay. So if you're still with us, those of us don't mind some minor course spoilers, let's move on. So Bijan, you've actually got the breakdown for us. So what did we get to see in the video?
All right. So first of all, the only obstacles I know in terms of placement is the very first obstacle and the very last obstacle. After that, it's kind of like a jumbled mess of I have no idea where it's at, and I'm kind of glad about that, because I still want there to be some mystery in terms of, or surprise in terms of the placement of the course. Now, we definitely have the first obstacle, which I was really excited about. It's different from the quintuple steps, which really surprised me. And I saw two different versions of this first obstacle. And now, rather than the quintuple steps where you jump from right to left, you're just going straight. So, from what I saw, it's 3 or 4 pegs, or I guess, giant placements, right? And instead of landing right to left, you're jumping forward towards them. And in one of the previews I saw, or one of the obstacles, there is kind of like an inverted, or how should I say this? It's kind of like a slanted up board rather than facing, it's kind of like a quintuple step, but rather than facing to the side, it's kind of faced forward towards you. And it kind of had a hydraulic on the back of it. I don't know if it's to take the slack of the impact when you land on it or what it was for, but it definitely had some hydraulic type thing behind it for when it's, I guess, slanted upwards. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it was just to make it adjustable, possibly, but...
No, that's a good point. It very much could have been. And another different version of it from what I saw was a more rounded topping to it, where I believe we've seen a similar obstacle before in a transition part of stage 1, but it's more of like a rounded top where it kind of shakes when you step on it and wobbles.
Yeah, I think they're called stepping stones, or they've got some different names for them, I think.
Yeah. So, after that, well, I shouldn't say after that, because I really don't know what is after that, but I'll just go down my list of what I had written down from what the from what the preview showed. We had the traditional warped wall, and it's side by side, so you definitely saw competitors running up that thing, and yeah, I don't know if it's the last obstacle or close to the last obstacle, but warped wall is definitely a part of it. And that's really exciting because, you know, who doesn't, like, everybody wants to see the competitors run up that warped wall, right? And you can imagine that's going to, like, burn out a lot of the competitors' endurance because you really have to explode up that thing.
Yeah, and with the buzzer, they show it. It must be the last one, right? They got the buzzer right there for them to race over for it. So I think that's a very... There's something about that, right? Watching two of them race up that wall at the same time, racing for that buzzer, I think is really, really been exciting to watch.
Yeah, and can you imagine, like, you're beating somebody and then you just miss that warped wall and the guy does it on his first try and you just watch him beat you just because of that obstacle? Man, that would be brutal.
Yeah, it's going to lead to them rushing that obstacle in some way because they don't want to get beat out on it. So they might take less steps. They may not, you know, because a lot of times they'll take their time to catch their breath and kind of, but if you're in a race, you're just going to have to go for it. And it's going to be great. Yeah,
it can prove to mess some people up. So I'm really excited about that. And good point about the buzzer part. I forgot about that was in the preview. So that I believe we saw two different versions of the course, and as we said before, it was in different stages for this particular show. So that might be, for instance, stage one's final obstacle, and I'll speak about the other final obstacle later because it's a doozy, and I'm really excited to see it. So after that, we have, I don't know the name of this obstacle, but there's cylinder-like rings. I remember last week we talked about an obstacle that was similar to the shape of red cups, and it's similar like that, where it kind of is outward like red cups, and you kind of have to swing from one to another to catch yourself. And I remember it was on... Jamie Ron failed on this particular obstacle. I don't remember which stage of the course it was on American Ninja Warrior, but basically it's that one obstacle where you got one shot, and if you mess it up, you're just going to be swinging for a while. Do you remember the name of that obstacle, Rich?
Talk about Roulette Row?
That's the name of it.
Oh, okay, so that's what you're talking about.
So yeah, they had Roulette Row, but rather than just one of them, from what I saw, it was about three of them. So you got to jump from one to another to another. And the roulette obstacle itself was a little bit smaller, so it's not the size of what we saw before. So from there, we had a cargo net, and I believe it was a Tarzan Swing 2 cargo net from what I saw. We also had the ring slider, which I'm really glad we have that back because that's a kind of fun obstacle. And it's an obstacle you can't really speed through. So, you know, I'm glad we have an obstacle where it can burn somebody out and we get to have kind of a slow down part to see can they do it, you know, and how fast can they do it. And we had the log grip, the traditional log grip, which everybody knows, you know, you just wrap your arms around it and hope for the best. And we had the pole grasper above water. So for this one, it's a long pole. It's actually held up from the ceiling. It's a variety of poles in different areas, and you kind of have to transition from one to another. Casey Catanzaro famously had it on her run where, you know, she became famous for, where she had to famously do this 5-foot gap transition from one of the poles to another. They have that back again.
That one I think could be really interesting for watching them try to rush through it. I mean, because some of them can seem to do that relatively quickly, and others really struggle with it. So I think that'll really separate the pack out a bit.
Yeah, good point. And we saw kind of a preview of it with the USA versus China special, where we saw a lot of the athletes that were timed and against each other. They were trying to rush through an obstacle very similar to this. Obviously, how the poles are placed and the placement of it, if there's a giant gap or transition between them, very much depends on the difficulty of this obstacle. But we saw a preview of it before where you had all these different athlete or competitors on the USA versus China special kind of going at it different ways, where a lot of them did very well and some of them it really, messed them up in terms of time. So it's going to be fun seeing them very much tackle this obstacle.
Yeah, as you said, when we watched that one, there was a really large gap that required some of the competitors to basically grab 2 poles and swing themselves and launch themselves over to the next, almost like slingshot themselves, where other ones were able to do it without doing that, which made a big difference in time.
Oh, yeah. And we had an obstacle similar to the devil swing. I don't even know if it is a devil swing on this. From what I saw, they're basically trapeze bars, but from what I see in this particular one, the trapeze bar doesn't swing. So I think it's a very rugged, sturdy trapeze bar that you have to jump across or, grab onto and swing your body and jump across a gap to another trapeze bar, from what I'm seeing. We also had this new obstacle. I'm going to try my best describing it. It's kind of like they're hanging, the hanging chain obstacles, what we were talking about before with the cones from last week, from usually there's balls or from, I don't know, Cannonball Alley. There's various hanging obstacles. Now, this particular obstacle is in that same vein, but there's almost like rubberized thin string grips where you have to hold on to. And what they do is when you grab onto it, it gives slack. And depending on how much of the thin strings you grab onto it, it's going to very much determine how much, you kind of go downwards. So I really like this obstacle. I'm really curious how well people do on it because it's a new obstacle. And it looks like it's going to be brutal in terms of, your arm strength. How do you feel about this?
Yeah, those particular holds look pretty devious, so I think it'll be interesting to see what kind of techniques they use to get through it. We saw it in the Kansas City, wherever we had the wolf pack running through, because that's Noah Kaufman got kind of messed up on it. I remember watching Megan Martin do it, and Isaac. They all went through that type of a grip to get up to the log that they had to kind of shimmy down to get through. So they definitely caused some issues for some competitors and not so much for others. I mean, it was a pretty wide gap in how they tackled it and how much trouble it caused them.
Yeah. By the way, after this course preview, I want to talk about one thing that I've seen a constant out of all of these particular obstacles. But continuing, we have the doorknob grasper, which is, the traditional one where you just swing from one to another with swinging pegs. And I'm glad to see that. It was on an incline, so you progressively have to go up and then down on the doorknob grasper. And we also have inverted devil steps. So devil steps, traditionally, you're going upwards and then downwards, on different, kind of like a ladder in many ways. With this one, you're going downwards and then upwards. And I don't know if that will mess a lot of people up. It also looked as though it was similar to what we saw from Jamie Ron's Ninja Warrior course during the National Ninja League, what we talked about earlier. It looked as though it was a lot closer and lower to the water. So I don't know if that will mess up a lot of people in terms of having to keep their body upwards or upright or not. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. And the last but not least obstacle that I saw, which definitely is going to be the end of one stage of the course, which I'm really excited to see, is a spider climb to a rope climb, and it's going to be 40 feet high. And I'm guessing this is going to be the final stage because it's very much a copy of Stage 4 in Sasuke, and older Sasuke. And older Sasuke, I don't know if they still have it. I don't think they do, but an older stage, the Stage 4 of older Sasuke was actually a spider climb, and then after about 20 feet, you go into a rope climb for an additional 20 feet. And it looks as though they brought this to Team Ninja Warrior. And I absolutely love this obstacle. It is so fun to watch. For me, it's a lot more exciting than just watching somebody climb a 40-foot rope. I don't know if it's easier or not than climbing a 40-foot rope, but in terms of the visual aspect of it, it's a lot more entertaining and fun to watch. And I'm really excited that they brought it to this particular course.
Cool. Yeah, it should be really interesting to see, especially when you have the race component added to it. So yeah, overall, it looks really promising. I like the balance. I don't feel like it's stressing one thing over another unnecessarily, because I did find this season of the show to be very upper body intensive, but I don't feel like this is sacrificing that in any way.
I have to cut you off right there, man, because this is one thing I'm worried about. From what I'm seeing in all of these obstacles, other than the first obstacle, it is all grip based, and that is really worrying me.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess you could say that, sure.
Pole grasper, ring slider, cargo net, spider climb, cylinder rings, devil steps, the rubber grips, doorknob grasper, everything. I'm just seeing all of this arm strength intensive stuff. Now, I want to remind everybody that this is just a little snippet of what the course will look like. There's going to be a lot of transition obstacles in between these. I'm not saying that this is the entire course, and I really hope we're going to see a lot more transition obstacles where you have to use balance and precision and maybe your legs more. But I'm really worried that what they highlighted in this particular preview, it's all grip strength stuff. And I am like, oh boy, because we already have that in American Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, that's funny that I actually didn't pick up on that, because, yeah, I guess that makes sense now that you say it. I felt like from watching it, it didn't seem that way, but when you list them off that way, yeah.
Yeah, from watching it, it really doesn't look that way. I think it was due to the pace. You just saw people rushing through it more, which I'm really happy about. At least they're going fast on it. But I'm seeing a whole lot of parallel to American Ninja Warrior a little too much in terms of we have a lot of upper body intensive things. Now, as I said, I do expect there to be a lot more agility and balance-based obstacles. But from this preview and what they've shown, they've only highlighted grip strength obstacles, which makes me pause for worry. Now, yeah, basically that's all I could say. Perhaps what they highlighted was maybe one stage, maybe the first stage, which is due to the themes of American Ninja Warrior. Maybe it was just more focused on upper body, and perhaps in stage 2, or maybe this was stage 2, and maybe in stage 1, you see more of agility balance-based things. That's my guess, is that we're going to see them highlighted, different body aspects highlighted in different stages.
Yeah, one thing I guess they could do to make that not as bad, and maybe that's why the preview didn't feel as bad, is if there's a lot of obstacles that use upper body, as long as they're not longer or more endurance based, it wouldn't be as bad. So if you've got to swing across from one ring to another, or from Tarzan rope to cargo net, I guess the cargo net's not a great example because that does tax a little more, but it's not like the crazy cliffhanger or something where you're going to be hanging for a while. Then doorknob grasper might be bad, but chances are it's only going to be a few. It's not going to be like we've seen with the large arch where they're hanging there for like a minute trying to get across this thing with 25 doorknobs.
I'm sorry, man. It is that arch with the 25 doorknobs.
Oh my God.
So sorry.
I need to pay better attention.
Describe it. I didn't describe it very well. I'm not the best when it comes to descriptions. That's why I usually have Rich cover it, everybody. But yeah, it is that arch.
Is it really the 25? Wow. I'm going to have to go back and watch it again. It took me forever. Just a disclaimer, if you're not in the US, watching this video is a pain in the butt to get to. So by the time I managed to get it working, we got one run through. So that's why Bijan's doing all the description and everything, because he got to rewatch it. So now I'm going to have to go try it again and see it in a little more detail.
But as I said, when it comes to these obstacles, you have to imagine there has to be a transition obstacle in between them. Otherwise, it'll look too much like stage 3, which is not traditionally a stage where you're rushing through it, where you have to worry about speed and everything. So my guess is that all these obstacles that we've been talking about today, they might put in an obstacle like a rolling log or something in between the two obstacles. So perhaps maybe you do the cargo net, you land, you do a rolling log or a different type of balance or agility-based obstacle, and then you go into something like a warped wall or something like a pole grasper.
All right, so we've got another just less than a month to go before we'll see it all. So we'll continue our coverage over the coming weeks. We'll be running through the other teams and watching out for any new videos, giving us more information on what's to come. And that's it for this week's show. I'd like to thank you all for listening in. You can reach out to us you can email us at rich@ninjapodcast.com, or you can find us on Facebook or Twitter, and our handle is @ninjapodcast. I'd like to thank you all for listening and wish you a happy holidays and have a good week.
Get hyped, everybody. We're a month away. Happy holidays.
A special thanks to Kathleen Martin for the song Player v Player Remastered from bandcamp.com.
Thank you all for listening and have a lovely day.